Hello and welcome to Chemistry Lesson 3.04, Part 2 on mole conversions. So in the last video, we said sometimes these problems can be a little bit confusing because you're not quite sure where to start. So let's start off with a problem, and then I'm going to show you a little bit of a hint. I'm going to tell you a story, and that'll give you a hint that you can use. So let's do. What is the mass of 4.2 times 10 to the 12th atoms of sulfur? And maybe when you look at this, you think, I just don't know where to start. I mean, I know I'm supposed to do this frame up, but I'm just a little bit lost. There's a diagram that you can use that will help you figure out what conversion factors you need and when you need it. But you have to remember how to draw the diagram. And so I always like to tell a story um, that helps you remember how to draw the diagram. Now, don't draw along with me because I'm going to be starting off in pencil, and then I'm going to be erasing and redrawing. So once I start writing things down in Sharpie, then you can put it in your notes too. Once upon a time, there were three brothers that grew up in the middle of the desert on top of a plateau or a mesa. If you haven't been to the desert, a mesa is a real high, flat outcropping of rock, and it's really hard to get to the top. So their mom was kind of a hippie, and she wanted to go off the grid. Excuse me. And so she, picked out this mesa, and they had everything they needed. There was some water, but it was kind of a solitary existence. And the three brothers grew up doing what brothers do, playing basketball and playing video games and fighting and teasing each other. And eventually they grew up into young men. And sadly enough, mom passed away at some point. And it was just the three of them. Well, everything was good until there was an earthquake. So let's start off with that. By the way, their names, I haven't told you their names. Since their mom was kind of a hippie, she gave them weird names. She named them sorry, I just have to take a second and think. Yeah, so she named them Mass, she named them Mole, and she named them Count. I am going to do these in Sharpie. And I'm going to, in pencil, kind of draw their plateau or mesa. I know that's very faint. Well, everything was okay until one day there was an earthquake, and the earthquake knocked down huge parts of the mesa, and they were separated on their own little islands. So Mass was on his, and Mole was on his, and Count was on his. And they couldn't get to each other. Oh, they were so lonely and bored. It was worse than quarantine. Well, they also couldn't get down. It was too high, so they were really stuck. One day, a guy came walking through the desert, and see, I'll draw my guy, and I'll try to draw him in dark pencil here. Guy came walking through the desert. He came walking past. He was a backpacker, and Count saw him. He's like, hey, buddy, can you help us? We're stuck. We can't get down. We can't get across. And the guy looked up and said, well, as a matter of fact, I can. I am an engineer and I specialize in building bridges. And because I feel so bad for you, I will come out and I will build a bridge between you and your brother's plateau. But you have to name it after me because that's what bridge builders do. They say, you got to name the bridge after me. Now, in hindsight, maybe it would have made more sense just to get him down off the plateau, but that's not really what this story is about. So our bridge builder came out with his equipment and he built this bridge. And his name happened to be Ted Avogadro. And so the bridge became known as Avogadro's Bridge. Another weird name, huh? Well, that left Mouse feeling really sad. now he's Mole and Count can go back and forth and they can shoot hoops, but gosh, now he's stuck. Well, sure enough, not too many months later, another backpacker came through. And she was walking past Mass's plateau, and she said, and he saw her as a woman. He said, hey, lady, can you help me? I'm stuck. My brothers can see each other, but I'm up here. I can't get down. I can't get across. And she said, well, yeah, I just happen to be an engineer and I build bridges. I guess there must have been a convention in town or something. A lot of engineer bridge builders. She said, I'll come out. I'll bring my equipment. I'll build a bridge. And again, maybe it would have made more financial sense just to get him off the plateau, but this is what they did. So sure enough, she brought out her equipment and her men, and they built a bridge. She said, but here's the thing, you got to name it after me. And she had a hyphenated last name. Her last name was Moeller Mass. So we have mass, mole count. We've got the bridge is Moeller Mass, and this is actually, we're going to say Avogadro's number. And using this little handy dandy bridge, it'll tell you what you need to do, how many conversion factors you need, and where to put them in. But before we go there, so what happened? The brothers, they had their bridges, they had their plateaus. They were actually a little bit happier because now they had their personal space, and they still live there to this day. The end. Okay, let's go to our first problem. You still have to frame up the problem. So I still have to say we're looking for mass. So I'm going to solve for grams, and I'm starting with atoms. So I'm going to put 4.2 times 10 to the 12th atoms. I'm going to placeholder that over 1, and I'm solving for grams. So here's how this diagram works. Atoms is a count or a number of something. So I'm starting here. Grams, mass, is up here. If you want to know how many conversion factors you need, use your diagram to go from here to here. Every time you cross a bridge, that's a conversion factor. So this means that my first conversion factor, I need 2, I'm crossing 2 bridges. The first conversion factor is Avogadro's number. Let me get a pen. Use a pen. So my first conversion factor is Avogadro's number, and my second conversion factor is molar mass. Now you still have to be able to write your conversion factors and put correctly. So I know that if I look up the molar mass, if I look up the atomic mass for sulfur, I see that there's 32 grams of sulfur in 1 mole of sulfur. So if you're still having trouble writing conversion factors, make sure you talk to me or talk to a buddy or get that down. I also know that there are 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd atoms of sulfur in 1 mole of sulfur. So Avogadro's number is the first one that has to go in, and I'm going to have to flip it because I have atoms on the top. So I'm going to put 1 mole sulfur, 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd atoms sulfur. And then I'm going to need molar mass, and I can put that in just like this. 32 grams of sulfur over 1 mole sulfur. Going to cancel my units. And when I multiply and divide, I see that this is 2.23 times 10 to the minus 10th grams of sulfur. All right, let's do one more sample problem using our table. And what you can do is you can rewrite this table on a homework sheet or on a test, and it'll help you kind of find your way. So what if I want to know the mass, find the mass of 0.33 moles of mercury. All right, I'm starting at mass. So you put your finger where you're starting from, you put your other finger where you're going to. I'm starting at mass and I'm going to mole. I only need one conversion factor, and that's molar mass. Well, when I look on my periodic table, whoops, I forgot to frame up my problem. Uh-oh. Got ahead of myself there, shame on me. So my problem says I have 0.33 moles of mercury and I'm solving for mass, which will be grams. So once you know that, then you use your diagram and you know what factors you need and what order you need them in. When I look at my periodic table, I see that there is 200.6 grams of mercury in 1 mole of mercury. By the way, when do you round? What's the rule for rounding? If you have a molar mass that's got a half tenths place, like a copper was 63.5, this is 200.6, keep the tenths place. Sulfur was 32.01, that can be rounded. So as long as you have a 4, 5, or a 6 in this tenths place, keep it. If you have anything higher, round up, or lower, round down. Okay, so this can go in just the way it is. 200.6 grams of mercury with 1 mole of mercury. All right, cancel. Means I have grams as the unit left standing, and I end up with 66.2 grams of mercury. So that's the handy dandy tip table. Again, rewrite it, but you have to write it correctly, so it can be helpful. And the other thing with this is we're going to add to it. So later in the year, we're going to convert from one type of compound to another type of compound. And that takes a little bit of doing, and we'll do this diagram again. And so it can help you in more ways than it'll help you even later. So, all right, that's our hints and tips for mole conversions. Thanks for watching and have a good day.